Austria has one of the highest living standards in the world, meaning it is not a cheap place to live. However, the benefits for its citizens are great, including one of the best public education and health systems in the world, a stable economy, and a safe place to live. The legal situation of women in Austria has improved since the mid-1970s. As regards women's rights, the priority in Austria is based on equal treatment of both sexes, rather than just equal rights. Austrian women, therefore, benefit from their government's attempt to compensate for gender-specific burden inequality. However, the concept of traditional roles influenced by Roman Catholicism in Austria is still common in Austrian society. It is one of the best for women in terms of both gender equality and human rights. However, the salary gap is still a problem. Austrian women earn about 15% less than men's average wage. Better than the EU average, but inequality still inequality. 9. Australia, which is also the only country with its own continent, is one of the largest countries in the world in terms of both landmass and economy. It is also steeped in history that has been occupied for more than 40,000 years. In the 18th century, the British colonized Australia, shaping its current functioning in terms of society and government. Today, it is a blend of Asian cultures as well as Western cultures, given its proximity to Asia. A paradise for adventure lovers, divers, surfers, gourmets, and culture buffs. Women in Australia refer to the demographic and cultural presence of women in Australia. Australian women have made a great contribution to the development of the country in many areas. Historically, Australian culture has been dominated by a masculine bias. Since 1984, the Gender Discrimination Act of 1984, CTH, employment, accommodation, education, the provision of goods, facilities and services, the activities of clubs, and the administration of Commonwealth laws and programs, but some inequalities still persist. 8. New Zealand. Women in New Zealand are women who live in New Zealand or come from New Zealand. New Zealand, in particular, was the first self-governing country in the world where women had the right to vote. Recently, New Zealand has recruited many women in senior leadership and government roles, including current Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. In New Zealand, the gender pay gap is 9.5%. The country's gender equality effort is among the highest in the world. New Zealanders, namely Kiwis, are passionate about the environment and human rights. Thanks to its stable economy, strong job market, and political stability, it is one of the safest places to live and better in terms of income equality. However, abortion is still illegal in the country. In 2015, New Zealand was one of the countries that adopted the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2030. However, as of this year, it still ranks 11th. 7. Switzerland. A nation with a solid distribution of political power and high human rights advocacy. It is one of the most expensive countries in the world, but its citizens earn a high annual income. The country also enjoys political stability and one of the most stable economies in the world. Plus, you guessed it, the country's public education and public health systems are world-class. While Swiss citizens are well paid and enjoy tremendous personal freedom, the gap between men and women still exists. In 2019, a large number of women who could change the future of women in Switzerland were elected to parliament. As of now, there is still a large gender pay gap when it comes to senior roles in Switzerland. Studies show that women earn 1/5 less than men in full-time jobs. As in other Western countries, in the 1990s and the 21st century, there were reforms regarding domestic violence laws. Marital rape was made illegal in 1992, and since 2004, marital rape has been tried of its own accord, i.e., a woman can be tried even if she does not complain. Switzerland also ratified the Council of Europe Convention on Combating Trafficking in Human Beings in 2012 and the Istanbul Convention in 2017. 6. Finland. Women in Finland enjoy a high degree of equality and traditional courtesy between men. In 1906, Finnish women became the first women to vote in Europe. There are many women in Finland holding important positions in Finnish society, academics, business, and the Finnish government. An example of powerful women in Finnish politics is Tarja Halonen, who was Finland's foreign minister before becoming president, the country's first female president. In the religion where most of the Finnish people are members of the Finnish Evangelical Lutheran Church, the other major Christian denomination in Finland is the Orthodox Church. Women can be appointed as priests. In terms of finance, Finnish women have been described as generally financially independent. Married women traditionally introduce themselves by first saying their name, then their maiden, and then their spouse's surname. Finland is one of the countries that take responsibility when it comes to gender equality and equal pay. In fact, the president in Finland is a 34-year-old woman from the Social Democratic Party, and her government is entirely run by women, 4 of them under the age of 35. There is also a female majority in the cabinet. Since women were eligible to vote in 1906, Finland has long been a champion for gender equality. Moreover, the female-to-male labor force participation rate is 88.5%. Similarly, the global average is 65.8%. 5. Canada. The History of Canadian Women is a study that examines the historical experiences of women living in Canada and the laws and regulations affecting Canadian women. During the colonial period of Canadian history, the roles of Indigenous women were often questioned by Christian missionaries, and their marriages with European fur traders often put their communities in greater contact with the outside world. During the colonial period, European women were encouraged to migrate to the Canadian colonies and expand the white population. After the Confederation in 1867, women's experiences were shaped by federal laws and laws passed in Canada's state legislatures. Women have been an important part of Canada's labour market, social movements, and culture for centuries and still face systematic discrimination. Women were given federal privileges in 1918, served in both World War I and World War II, and from the 1960s joined the second wave of the feminist movement. Historians have been increasingly researching and writing about women's history in Canada since the 1970s. The economy is stable with an open job market, and the country is safe with one of the best education and public health systems in the world. 95% of girls finish high school, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stresses a cabinet based on gender equality. 4. Norway. In the 1990s, feminism experienced some stagnation in Norway after more than 2 decades of reform. Despite all the progress achieved by equitable measures, wages are not always equal. It is difficult to reduce the number of women subjected to violence, and finally, maternity pay remains low. Today feminism takes new forms. The associations and movements that emerged from the first and second waves of Norwegian feminism adapt to these new structures, sometimes unofficial. Norwegians earn a high income, are highly educated and progressive, and attach great importance to the environment, human rights, and political power distribution. 3. The Netherlands is committed to promoting women's economic independence and financial self-sufficiency. Equality of women and men is a guiding principle of external and development efforts, providing a basis for stability and economic prosperity. In 2016, the Netherlands plans to launch a program called Financing Leadership and Opportunities for Women to support women's economic and political participation and to combat violence against women and girls in low- and middle-income countries. It will be the largest fund of its kind in the world. Another important fund will support advances in sexual and reproductive health and rights, as women must be able to make their own choices about sexuality and family planning in order to have a voice and economic opportunities. Speaking at the Global Leaders meeting on September 27, 2015, Prime Minister Mark Rutte said, "Equality between women and men is also a guiding principle in our overseas and development efforts, as gender equality is a foundation for stability and economic prosperity." Among European countries, it also has one of the smallest wage gaps on the continent. According to the 2019 Gender Equality Index, the Netherlands ranked 6th in the EU, with a score 4.7 points higher than the rest of the European Union. 2. Sweden. Over the years, the number of reported cases of violence against women in Sweden has increased significantly. This is partly due to the change in attitudes that encourage more women to speak out. However, it is not easy to determine whether violence against women is increasing, as many cases have not been reported. Around 28,000 cases of violence against women over 18 were recorded in Sweden in 2017. In most cases the perpetrators were male, and in more than half, 17,600, of these cases, the perpetrators were known to the women. In addition to the suffering caused, the total cost of healthcare, sick leave, police investigations, trials, and prison sentences is 45 billion Swedish krona per year. This is more than the entire annual budget of the Swedish defense. Sweden prides itself on making life as smooth as possible for its citizens. In fact, Sweden is number 1 for the best citizenship countries. It is based on gender equality, environment, human rights, distribution of political power, and trust.
Realize the potential.
It is one of the most economically stable countries in the world, with near-perfect public education and public health systems. Income equality is among the highest in the world, with around 80% of women in employment. However, there is room for growth as the Gender Equality Index reports that 74% of women do housework or cooking, compared to 56% of men. 1. Denmark scores well in the World Economic Forum's Gender Equality Index. Women in Denmark often work outside the home and raise a family while continuing their careers with the help of the country's generous parental leave and tax-subsidized daycare. Women are well represented in the Danish government. About 40% of the representatives in the Danish parliament focusing are women, and so are many of the country's ministers. Helle Thorning-Schmidt, Denmark's first female prime minister, took office in 2011. The influence of women in Danish politics is nothing new. In 1924, Nina Bang became the world's first female minister in a country with a parliamentary democracy. As Danish women now earn more advanced university degrees than men, their progress is likely to continue in the coming years. Danish men also enjoy gender equality. They spend more time with their families than in many other countries. Parental leave after the birth of a child can be split between parents, and limited working days mean it is usually the father who takes the children out of the nursery and prepares the dinner. A recent OECD study showed that although Danish men still do slightly less than Danish women, they do more housework than any other country in the world. Denmark sets the global gold standard when it comes to quality of life for women. In the report published by News and World Report, Denmark scored 95.7 points for gender equality. It is also a country that cares about the environment and human rights and is one of the safest countries in the world. Income equality also received 91.5. According to the EU's Gender Equality Index, Denmark is one of the top-scoring countries, with a score of almost 10 points above the average.